His phone rang at midnight, and I answered. That was the moment my life broke into two pieces: the life before the phone call and the life after. My name is Anna. I am 32 years old. Before that night, I thought I had a perfect life. I was married to a wonderful man named Ben. We lived in a small, beautiful house with a big garden. I loved our garden. It had red roses and yellow sunflowers. Ben and I planted them together. Our life was simple and quiet. I worked part-time at a local library. I love books. I love the smell of old paper and the quiet sound of pages turning. Ben worked for a big company in the city. His job required him to travel sometimes. He would be gone for a few days, maybe a week. I missed him when he was away, but I trusted him completely. Why wouldn't I? He was the kindest man I knew. He had a warm smile and gentle blue eyes. He always brought me a small gift when he came back from a trip. A scarf from a new city, or a strange-looking fruit he thought I would like. We had a routine. In the mornings, we drank coffee together on our small porch. We watched the sun rise. He would tell me about his work plans. I would tell him about a new book at the library. In the evenings, we cooked dinner together. He was not a great cook, but he always helped. He would chop vegetables very slowly and carefully. He made me laugh. After dinner, we watched movies or just sat and talked. Our conversations were easy. We talked about everything and nothing. I felt so safe with him. I felt so loved. I thought we would grow old together in our small house with our beautiful garden. I thought I knew everything about him. I was so wrong. I remember that night so clearly. It was a Tuesday. A cold wind was blowing outside. We were in bed. I was reading a book. Ben was already asleep. He was tired from a long week at work. He looked so peaceful. His face was calm. I smiled, put my book down, and turned off the light. The house was dark and quiet. I closed my eyes, ready to sleep. Then his phone started ringing. It was on the small table next to his side of the bed. It was his work phone. He usually turned it off at night. It was strange for it to ring so late. It was almost midnight. I thought, maybe it's an emergency from his office. I didn't want to wake him up. He looked so tired. I gently reached over and picked up the phone. The screen was bright in the dark room. I saw an unknown number. I hesitated for a moment. Should I answer? Maybe it was important. I pressed the green button. "Hello," I said softly. There was a moment of silence. Then a woman's voice. She sounded scared. She sounded like she was crying. "Ben. Is that you, Ben?" she asked. Her voice was shaking. My heart started to beat fast. "No, this is his wife, Anna," I said. "He is sleeping. Is everything okay?" There was another pause. I could hear her take a deep breath. "His wife," she whispered. Her voice was full of confusion. Then it became urgent again. "Please, I need to talk to him. It's Leo, our son. He has a very high fever. He's not waking up properly." The doctor said, "We need to go to the hospital right now. Please, wake him up." Her words hit me like a physical blow. I couldn't breathe. My mind went completely blank. Our son, Leo. Who was Leo? We didn't have a son. We didn't have any children. I thought I must have heard her wrong. This must be a mistake. A terrible, terrible mistake. I think you have the wrong number," I said. My own voice sounded strange, far away. "No," she insisted. "This is Ben's number. Is this not Ben Carter's phone?" "Yes, it is," I whispered. My whole body was cold. "Then please," she begged, starting to sob. "I don't know who you are, but I need my husband. My son needs his father. Please, just put him on the phone." My husband, her husband, our son. The words echoed in the dark room. They didn't make sense. But in my heart, a cold, hard truth started to form. It was a truth so terrible, I didn't want to look at it. Okay, I managed to say. I don't know why I said it. I think I was on autopilot. My hand was shaking so hard, I almost dropped the phone. I ended the call. Silence. The room was completely silent again. But it was a different kind of silence now. It was heavy. It was full of unspoken things. I looked at the man sleeping next to me. My husband, Ben. He was still sleeping peacefully. He looked exactly the same. But suddenly, he was a stranger. A complete stranger. Who was this man? This man who had a son. This man who had another wife. Another life. I sat there in the dark for a long time. I couldn't move. I just stared at him. The man I loved. The man I trusted with my whole life. My perfect life was a lie. A big, ugly lie. Tears started to stream down my face. They were silent tears. I didn't make a sound. I felt like if I made a sound, the whole world would break. But my world was already broken. It broke the moment I answered that phone call. I don't know how long I sat there. Maybe an hour, maybe more. My mind was racing. I remembered all the times he traveled for work. The late night calls he took in another room. The times he seemed distant or stressed. I always thought it was about his job. I never, ever suspected anything else. How could I have been so blind? So stupid? Finally, I knew I couldn't just sit there. I had to know. I needed to hear it from him. I gently shook his shoulder. "Ben," I whispered. "Ben, wake up." He moved a little and opened his eyes. He looked sleepy. "Anna, what's wrong? Is everything okay?" he asked, his voice thick with sleep. I turned on the small lamp next to our bed. The soft light filled the room. I wanted to see his face clearly. I wanted to see his eyes when he lied to me, or when he told me the truth. "Your phone rang," I said. My voice was surprisingly steady. I answered it. His face changed, just a little. The sleepiness disappeared from his eyes. He sat up. "My work phone, who was it? Was it my boss?" "No," I said, looking straight into his eyes. "It wasn't your boss. It was a woman. She said her name was..." "Wait, she didn't say her name. She said your son is sick." Your son, Leo. She said they need to go to the hospital. She called you her husband. I watched his face. I watched every small movement. First, there was confusion. Then, his face went completely white. He looked scared. He looked like a cornered animal. He didn't say anything. He just stared at me. Ben, I said, my voice starting to tremble. Who is Leo? Who is that woman? He shook his head. He looked down at his hands. Anna, it must be a mistake, a wrong number. You were probably half asleep. Don't lie to me, I said. My voice was low, but it was full of an anger I didn't know I had. Don't you dare lie to me now, Ben. She knew your name. She knew your full name. She called you her husband. She said you have a son together. He closed his eyes. A single tear rolled down his cheek. When he opened his eyes again, they were full of pain and guilt. He knew he couldn't lie anymore. The game was over. Anna, he whispered, I am so sorry. I never wanted you to find out like this. Find out what? I asked, even though I already knew. I just needed to hear the words. I needed him to say it. He took a deep breath. It's true, he said, his voice breaking. I have another family. Her name is Sarah. And Leo is my son. He is 4 years old. The world stopped. My breath caught in my throat. He said it. It was real. It wasn't a nightmare. It was my life. My husband had another wife and a child. For years, he had lived 2 lives. He had our life in this small house with the garden. And he had another life with another woman with a son. I couldn't speak. I just stared at him. I felt nothing and everything at the same time. I felt a huge, empty hole in my chest. I felt a rage so strong it scared me. I felt a sadness so deep I thought I would drown in it. How I finally managed to whisper, How could you do this to me, to her? It's complicated, he started. Complicated, I almost screamed. You lied to me every single day for years. You have a whole other family. That's not complicated, Ben. That's monstrous. He flinched. I met Sarah before I met you, he explained, his voice desperate. It was a long time ago. We were together for a short time. Then we broke up. I moved to this city for work. A few months later, she called me. She told me she was pregnant. I didn't know what to do. I was scared. I was young. He looked at me, begging me to understand. I started sending her money. I went to visit sometimes to see Leo. I wanted to be a father to him, but I was a coward. I didn't tell anyone. I didn't tell my parents. I didn't tell my friends. Then I met you, Anna, and I fell in love with you. I really did. You are everything I ever wanted. You made me so happy. I wanted to build a real life with you, a clean life. I thought I could keep the 2 worlds separate. I thought I could protect you from it. Protect me, I asked, my voice dripping with sarcasm. You didn't protect me. You deceived me. You built our entire marriage on a lie. Our home, our memories, our love. Was any of it real? Yes, he insisted, reaching for my hand. I pulled it away. Everything with you was real, Anna. I love you. I love you more than anything. Sarah, that was an obligation, a mistake from my past. You are my life, my real life. I laughed. It was a bitter, ugly sound. Your real life? What about her real life? Does she know about me? Does she think she is your only wife? He looked down again. He couldn't meet my eyes. No, he admitted quietly. She doesn't know about you. She thinks my work requires me to travel all the time. The sickness in my stomach intensified. So he had lied to both of us. He had 2 women who thought they were his only love, 2 families who thought he belonged to them. I thought about Sarah, the woman on the phone, her desperate, crying voice. She was worried about her sick child, and she was calling for her husband. A husband she shared with another woman. A husband who wasn't really hers. My heart ached for her. A woman I had never met. We were connected by the same man's lies. You need to go, I said. My voice was cold and empty. What? He asked, looking up in panic. Your son is sick, I said, repeating the words from the phone call. He needs his father. You need to go to them. Anna, please, he begged. Don't do this. We can talk about this. We can fix this. Fix this? I looked at him in disbelief. There is nothing to fix, Ben. It's broken. You broke it. Now go. He saw the look in my eyes. He knew I was serious. He slowly got out of bed. He started putting on his clothes. His hands were shaking. He looked lost. He kept looking at me, his eyes full of tears. Anna, I am so sorry, he said again and again. I didn't say anything. I just sat on the bed and watched him. When he was dressed, he picked up his car keys. He stood at the bedroom door for a moment. I love you, he whispered one last time. Then he turned and left. I heard his footsteps on the stairs. I heard the front door open and close. I heard his car start and drive away into the night. And then there was only silence. The heavy, broken silence of my new life. The life after the phone call. I was alone. Completely and utterly alone. The first few days were a blur. I don't think I left the house. I don't think I ate. I just moved from the bed to the sofa and back again. The house felt huge and empty. Every corner held a memory of him, of us. The coffee mugs we used in the morning. The half-finished book he was reading on the table. The sweater he left on a chair. Each object was a sharp reminder of the lie I had been living. I cried a lot. Sometimes I cried with loud, angry sobs. Sometimes I cried quietly, the tears just rolling down my face. I felt a pain so deep it was physical. My chest hurt. It felt like there was a heavy stone sitting on my heart. I replayed our entire life together in my head. I looked for signs. Were there clues I had missed? The business trips that were always to the same city. The unexplained credit card charges, he said, were for work expenses. The way he was always so careful with his work phone. Now it all made sense. It was all so obvious. How could I have been so naive? I felt so stupid. I felt ashamed. My sister, Maria, called me a few times. I didn't answer. I didn't want to talk to anyone. I didn't know what to say. How do you tell someone that your husband, your perfect, loving husband, has a secret family? It sounded like a story from a bad movie. It didn't feel real. After 3 days of silence, Maria came to the house. She had a key. She let herself in. She found me on the sofa, wrapped in a blanket, staring at the blank television screen. She didn't say anything at first. She just came and sat next to me. She put her arms around me, and I just fell apart. I cried and cried until I had no tears left. I told her everything. The phone call, Leo, Sarah, Ben's confession, his lies. She listened patiently. She didn't interrupt. She didn't judge. She just held my hand. When I finished, she said, "Oh, Anna, I am so sorry. You don't deserve this. No one does." Her kindness was a small light in my dark world. Maria stayed with me for a few days. She made me eat. She made me take a shower. She opened the curtains and let the sunlight in. She didn't talk about Ben much. She just talked about simple things. She told me about her new job. She told me a funny story about her cat. She helped me feel a little bit human again. Before she left, she said, "You are the strongest person I know, Anna. You will get through this. I know you will." I didn't feel strong. I felt broken into a million pieces. But her words gave me a tiny bit of hope. Maybe she was right. Maybe I could survive this. Ben tried to call me a few times. He sent me long text messages. He said he was staying at a hotel near Sarah's house. He said Leo was okay. It was just a bad virus. He said he missed me. He said he wanted to come home. He said he would leave Sarah and Leo. He would do anything to be with me again. I read his messages, but his words felt empty. I couldn't trust anything he said anymore. How could he leave his son? The same way he left me. He was a man who ran away from problems. He was a man who built his life on lies. I couldn't live like that. I couldn't be with a man I didn't respect. A man I couldn't trust. I made a decision. It was the hardest decision of my life. I sent him one short message. "Don't come back, Ben. It's over." Then I blocked his number. I knew I had to cut him out of my life completely. It was the only way I could start to heal. The next few weeks were incredibly difficult. I had to face the reality of my situation. I was alone. I was heartbroken. And I was also in financial trouble. The house was in Ben's name. He paid most of the bills. I only worked part-time. I didn't have much savings. Fear started to creep in. How would I survive? How would I pay the rent? How would I buy food? The grief was overwhelming, but the fear was practical. It forced me to move. It forced me to act. First, I knew I had to leave the house. I couldn't stay there. It wasn't my home anymore. It was a museum of a dead marriage. I started looking for a small apartment to rent. I found a tiny one-bedroom place above a flower shop. It was small, but it was sunny, and it was affordable. Packing up the house was painful. Every box I filled was like closing a chapter of my life. I packed away our wedding photos. I packed away the gifts he gave me. I packed away all the memories. I called a charity to come and take most of the furniture. I only kept a few things: my books, my favorite chair, and the small table from our porch. The day I moved out was hard. I stood in the empty house one last time. I looked at the garden we had planted together. The roses were blooming. They were beautiful. I took one last look, closed the door, and walked away. I didn't look back. My new apartment was small, but it was mine. It was a blank canvas. I could make it my own. I painted the walls a cheerful yellow. I bought a few cheap plants. I put my books on the shelves. Slowly, it started to feel like home, a safe space. Next, I needed a full-time job. The part-time library job was not enough. I started looking online. It was hard. I hadn't looked for a job in years. I didn't feel very confident, but I knew I had to do it. For myself, I found a job opening at a small, independent bookstore in the city. It wasn't a high-paying job, but it was full-time. And it was a job with books. I applied. I went for an interview. The owner was a kind, older woman named Mrs. Gable. She liked that I had library experience. A few days later, she called and offered me the job. I cried with relief. It was another small step forward. Life settled into a new routine, a different routine. I woke up early in my small apartment. I made coffee for one. I took the bus to work. I spent my days surrounded by books and quiet conversations. I helped people find stories. It was peaceful. It helped me forget my own sad story for a few hours each day. In the evenings, I came home to my quiet apartment. The loneliness was still there. It was a constant companion, especially at night. But I tried to keep busy. I learned to cook new things. I listened to music. I read a lot of books. I also started a new hobby. I bought some paints and canvases. I started painting. I wasn't very good, but it didn't matter. It was a way to express the feelings I couldn't put into words. Sometimes I painted dark, stormy skies. Sometimes I painted bright, colorful flowers. It helped. I had good days and bad days. On good days, I felt strong and hopeful. I enjoyed my own company. I felt proud of myself for surviving. On bad days, the grief would hit me like a wave. I would miss the life I thought I had. I would miss the man I thought Ben was. On those days, I allowed myself to be sad. I allowed myself to cry. But I didn't let the sadness swallow me. I would call my sister, or go for a long walk, or just paint until I felt a little bit better. Healing is not a straight line. I was learning that. One day, about 6 months after Ben left, I received a letter in the mail. It was from a lawyer. My heart pounded in my chest. I thought it was from Ben. I opened it with shaking hands. It was a letter about our divorce. He had filed the papers. It was official. It was really, truly over. Seeing it in black and white was strange. Part of me felt a deep sadness, the final end of our marriage. But another, bigger part of me felt a sense of relief. It was closure. It was the final chain breaking. Now I was completely free. I signed the papers and sent them back. I felt a strange lightness afterwards. The heavy stone on my heart felt a little bit smaller. Months turned into a year, then 2 years. Life went on. I continued to work at the bookstore. Mrs. Gable became a good friend. She knew a little bit about my story. She was always kind and supportive. I made a few new friends through work. We would go out for coffee sometimes. I started to laugh again. A real, genuine laugh. I learned to be happy on my own. I learned that my happiness did not depend on a man. It depended on me. I found joy in small things. The smell of coffee in the morning, a good book, a sunny day, a kind word from a stranger. My life was small and simple, but it was real. It was honest. And it was mine. I sometimes thought about Ben. I wondered what happened to him, to Sarah, to Leo. I hoped the little boy was happy. I hoped Ben was a good father to him. The anger I felt towards him had faded. It was replaced by a kind of pity. He was a man trapped by his own weakness, his own lies. He had hurt so many people, including himself. One cold afternoon in winter, I was walking home from work. It was snowing lightly. The city looked beautiful, covered in a soft white blanket. As I turned a corner, I saw him. Ben. He was standing across the street, looking into a toy store window. He was holding the hand of a small boy. The boy had dark hair and bright blue eyes, just like his father. It must be Leo. My heart stopped for a second. I froze. I wanted to turn and run away, but I didn't. I just stood there and watched them. Ben looked older. He had more gray in his hair. He looked tired. He pointed at a toy train in the window. The little boy jumped up and down with excitement. Ben laughed and knelt down to hug him. In that moment, I didn't feel anger. I didn't feel jealousy. I just felt a quiet sadness. Sadness for the life I had lost. Sadness for the innocence of that little boy. Sadness for the complicated, messy truth of it all. Ben looked up then. His eyes met mine across the street. He saw me. His smile faded. His face was a mixture of shock, sadness, and guilt. We just looked at each other for a long moment. The snow fell softly between us. I gave him a small, sad smile. A smile that said, I survived. A smile that said, I hope you find some peace. Then I turned and continued walking home. I didn't look back. Walking away from him, that day felt different. It didn't hurt in the same way. It felt like the final page of a long, sad book. It was over, and I was okay. When I got back to my warm, yellow apartment, I made myself a cup of tea. I sat in my favorite chair and looked out the window at the falling snow. I thought about the woman I was 2 years ago. The woman whose world fell apart because of a phone call. She felt so lost, so broken, so weak. But I wasn't that woman anymore. The heartbreak didn't destroy me. It changed me. It made me stronger. It made me more compassionate. It taught me that I could rely on myself. I learned that I could build a life for myself, a happy life, from the broken pieces of my past. My life is not a fairy tale. It's not the perfect life I once dreamed of. It's something better. It's real. I am not just the woman whose husband had a secret family. I am Anna. I am a bookseller. I am a painter. I am a sister. I am a friend. I am a survivor. And now, when I wake up in the morning, I make coffee for one. I look out my window at the city. I take a deep breath. And I am grateful. Grateful for my small, simple, honest life. Grateful for the strength I found within myself. If you are listening to my story and you are going through a hard time, please know this. You are not alone. It might feel like your world is broken. It might feel like the pain will never end. But you are so much stronger than you think. Be kind to yourself. Take one small step at a time. And know that one day, the sun will shine for you again. You can heal. You can build a new life. And you can find happiness again in your own way, on your own terms.